Long before there were pocket monsters, there was Monster in My Pocket, a toy line of little monster figurines from Matchbox that started off in 1989 and became a bit of a fad in the early 90s, which explains why there is a video game based on the property. This is Monster in My Pocket for the Nintendo Entertainment System, released in 1992 by Konami. Monster in My Pocket gives you two characters to play as, the vampire or the monster, or you could control both in two-player simultaneous action, as you contend with 6 stages of monster-busting action in order to defeat the evil warlock and bring peace to pockets everywhere, or something. Both characters play pretty much the same way. You could run, you could jump, you could crouch, you could shoot a short-range energy wave to kill grunts and hurt bosses, your primary attack pretty much, and you also have a rather nifty double jump ability, which is useful for reaching those high out-of-reach places. Learn to use that double jump because not only is it a helpful tool, but it is also essential to your survival, especially in the later levels, where it relies on this quite a bit. Monster in My Pocket is a fairly standard side-scrolling platformer where you kill enemies with your energy waves and you make your way through 6 levels of play, each with 2 areas and a boss fight. You have 5 hit points and 3 lives to play with an additional life being awarded for the first 500 points and every 2,000 points afterwards. You lose all your hit points or you fall into a pit, you lose a life, usually respawning at the last point you died. Lose all your lives and it's game over, but the game does give you a couple continues to restart at the last level that you died. 6 levels doesn't seem like a whole lot of game, but Monster in My Pocket will keep you busy by throwing a whole bunch of, well, monsters at you. For the most part, it's grunts running in at you, but sometimes you'll have to contend with flying enemies, some platforming hazards, can and hook riding, that sort of thing. While the game will occasionally throw you a bone with the occasional health pickup or a key or screw that you could pick up to toss at enemies for quick kills, or perhaps even carry it all the way to the end of the level and use it on a boss, for the most part your skills, instincts, familiarity with what's coming, and perhaps even a bit of dumb luck are the only tools you have to survive the challenges ahead. Fortunately, you've got good solid working controls that are easy to pick up and grasp, assuming you've played any other side-scrolling platform game on the Nintendo Family NES Entertainment Computer System thing. Excuse me. The double jump mechanic works well enough to the point where there's only extremely rare cases where such an ability would fail me at the most inopportune times. And of course, if one player doesn't cut it, try 2 for some fine co-oping action and lots of flicker. The visuals of Monster in My Pocket are a bit of a mixed bag of sorts, which seems somewhat odd to say considering that on the surface, you've got some pretty impressive set pieces, fairly smooth character designs and animations with some nice detail to them, and some occasional bits of parallax scrolling here and there. The whole little person in Giant Land thing is executed pretty well here, so why am I here saying that the graphics are a mixed bag? Well, in case it isn't already apparent on screen, the constant sprite flickering and heavy slowdown when too many things are going on screen tends to hamper the experience somewhat. In fact, there seems to be little to no instance where sprite flickering is not a way of life in this Monster in My Pocket video game. All I can really say is that it's a truly unfortunate thing you have to deal with, and something that takes a really splendid looking Nintendo game down a notch or two. On the flip side of things, Monster in My Pocket continues the Konami trend of excellent sound quality in their NES video games. The rare raspy vocal grunts, the top-notch sound effects that have no doubt permeated other titles under the Konami and or Ultra Games banners, and of course a fine selection of wonderfully composed chiptunes to serenade you along the way, covering a rather modest bit of variety that somewhat fits the level you're venturing at the time. Wonderful stuff. Overall, if you want a little side-scrolling action game on the NES that's fun for a lark and can also play 2, well, actually you've got a bunch of choices, but Monster in My Pocket fits the bill rather nicely. If you could forgive the sprite flicker, and I know some people are bothered by that sort of thing, that's why I even brought it up, then you have a solid game that probably won't last long, but it'll be a fun time regardless, and that's all that really matters when all is said and done. The card itself isn't too expensive, around the $30 to $40 range last I checked, but you could always go for those multi-card things that from that one website that's usually on there. I played mine off the 150 thing. It works. But yeah, Monster in My Pocket for the NES. Good times. Good times.